Hey, so I wanted to give a demo of a little project I've been working on lately. It was originally going to be my submission to the Docker Global Hack Day, but I didn't get it done. So I've just been kind of working on it and wanted to kind of show what it does. So I call it Docker Grid. So I've been working around, seeing the Docker cluster proposal from Docker, and working around, kind of just the clustered Docker space. I wanted to create something a little bit different than what most are out there, and so I had kind of three ideas or three principles that I wanted to do, and as part of the project, and that's what forms Docker Grid. So first of all, this is like aimed to be kind of like an experimental like public service. So what it is it's a kind of a lightweight, loosely defined cluster. So there are, you can have multiple nodes that attach to the grid, and then they all report to a single controller. But there's a couple things that are different. So some existing projects, you have to reconfigure the Docker daemon or open TCP ports or anything. One of the principles for Docker Grid was that you didn't have to touch anything related to Docker, and everything had to run in a container. So there's no reconfiguration of the daemon or of the clients. They're just Docker images that run. And the last thing was that it should be able to be controlled by standard Docker tools, so unmodified Docker tools. So kind of go through each piece, and then I'll show a quick demo. So first of all, there's the grid controller. This is all open source. It's under ehazlet/docker-grid. But the first piece is the controller. It's just the Go. This is one single Go binary with subcommands. The grid controller provides basically an aggregation service. So it receives kind of the node state and then aggregates them together, and then it can report it back to the Docker client. So it is either no external services, so there's no database or anything. It's all just runs in memory, and it's quick. So you can tear down the controller, bring it back up the nodes. It gives it to state within about 300 to 500 milliseconds. The second piece is the grid node. So this is what's actually run in a container on each one of your Docker Grid nodes. And this, once again, it's the same binary, but it runs and just reports state back to the controller. And to run containers, like I said before, you should be able to use the standard Docker, unmodified Docker client. And yeah, so we'll give a quick demo. So as I said, right here I have basically you just run ehazlet/docker grid the controller. So what this does is it's going to fire up, and then we're going to go into EC2, and we're going to run the viewer here, which will show the connect nodes. So we're starting up some nodes, and we should see them start popping in here. Yep, shortly. So we're going to start, we've got almost all of them. So yeah, we're going to start 50, so we have 50 nodes running in EC2. And you can see their IPs, and they've got memory restraints and so on and so forth. So let's check out, we can see there's no containers running. So let's go ahead and check out, go ahead and quit this, and we'll just check out the Docker PS. So Docker PS shows that there's nothing running. So what the controller does is, like I said, it's an aggregation service, but this is a queue-based system. So a lot of them, or a lot of the existing projects out there, will use like agents on other type of agents on the nodes, or they'll use something where they just use the Docker API to where they connect directly to the host. But one thing that I wanted to do is to stay away from having to reconfigure open up ports. So I wanted to not have to worry about security as far as port security and or authentication. So this way you can leave it just running on your socket, and you don't need to open any ports, you don't need to reconfigure any networking, you don't need to change any firewall rules or anything. It's a queue-based system that runs completely in memory. So how this works is when we do a regular Docker run, this will send the same payload that it normally sends to Docker. However, it will take it, the controller receives it and then puts it onto the queue. And right now it's just a basic, simple queuing system in which it puts the job on, and whichever node grabs it first gets it. And then the node runs the job and then returns the job result, which then returns back to the client. So if we run this, we should get, and here it's actually pulling the image because it didn't have it on the host. So now we can look, and now we have one running. And if we look and here, we can see that this host is the one that has it, the 248.218. So now what we'll do, and we can see it's pretty responsive for keeping track of 50 nodes. Seems pretty snappy. So now what we'll do is we'll give it a little more load. So what we're going to do is we're going to run a bunch of containers. And here we're going to fire all these up. And actually they're already started. So what we did there is we ran 50 Nginx containers. And it started them across the cluster. So one thing to notice here is what Docker Grid also does is it changes the port listing. So this is, once again, it's just an unmodified client. So it's an unmodified Docker. It's totally just a 1.3.1 release. However, what the controller does is when we do a PS, we can see that the port mappings are different. So what it does is when the node launches, it reports its IP. And this way, since we have all of these hosts running everywhere, we know we can find which one's running here. So we can take this and actually should be able to curl one of these hosts, and we can see that Nginx is running. So let's throw some more at it. I'm going to change my load script to do quite a bit more. Let's try 500. So we should be able to start to see. So now you can see the containers just start to launch. And once again, it just queues the jobs. Each one of the nodes, as they're free, they start pulling jobs off, and then they start running them and then report them back to the controller. And once again, this is all running in memory, so there is a memory constraint. However, you know, with the short time that I put into it, it seems that it's pretty snappy. So let's look. So if we do, so right there running, it's pulling 550 containers, and it's pretty snappy for all of those containers that it's showing here across the grid. It's pretty responsive. So yeah, that's Docker Grid. And once again, the source is github.com/ehazlett/docker-grid. So yeah, welcome any feedback. Thanks.